Hi, and welcome to Medical Malfunction. We decided to do a really quick video today because we were talking about some bullshit.
You got offended in the gym because,
I'm not offended. I'm just right.
Pee-Wee, I thought Pee-Wee and all was the documentary kind of pissed me off because
Wait. So that is the title of this episode. Are you mad at Pee-Wee Herman? And so this is Chad Hendricks, by the way. He's our guest today. Sometimes always he works behind the camera on this show, but sometimes he gets in front of the camera on other things. But for the moment, I decided, okay, you've got to sit in front of the camera today because I was shocked to hear I was like, wait a minute, are you mad at Pee-Wee?
I'm mad at Pee-Wee. He died. You watch the doc, the very beginning, they go, Pee-Wee, Paul Reubens, Pee-Wee Herman died of cancer, who he had it for 6 years, didn't tell anybody. And then he just up and dies, and then they're making a documentary about this guy. And I'm like, well, we don't even get to give you your flowers while you're here because you didn't tell anybody you had cancer.
You wanted to give Pee-Wee flowers? That's so nice of you. Aw, that's nice.
Love Pee-Wee.
He means metaphorical flowers, obviously. but now you can send other ones. I'm sure there's something set up for that. And I did not do my research on it yet. So but I'm sure that there are plenty of things. And somebody has to take up the birthday mantle because Pee-Wee was famous for acknowledging everyone's birthday. But what he wasn't famous for, as we know now, two things. We'll leave the other one out because that is his business. But also, I believe that it's his business that he is not disclosing his cancer diagnosis. Someone's literally growling about this.
I'm just saying, if you're going to do 40 hours on camera, allowing people to document you, get rights to all the cool stuff you did on this planet, even like school movies, high school, college stuff. I mean, it went way back. I mean, they digged into it. So all I'm saying is, I know people are private and sometimes they want to go out on their own terms. And somewhere in there, though, if you're a public figure, even if you're not, let's just assume that I'm going through that or you're going through that.
Who, me?
Right.
What?
Assume somebody who's going through it. Wouldn't you want to be able to tell them you love them before you're at their funeral? That's all I'm saying.
Well, first of all, I will tell you that I will talk more about my experience as this channel matures, but I will say that it is a difficult thing to do. And I immediately brought up the other more recent Norm MacDonald experience because a lot of folks were, but I don't remember people being truly mad at him. They were a little bit. I did hear it a little bit from the comedians, but and I believe he had his diagnosis for 7 years, if I recall the math. And but looking back, I can kind of see, but of course they were in very different places because Norm was still working. It was a very different situation. And so I think in Pee-Wee's case, he was obviously, I think, coming to do this documentary as a way to sort of set the record straight about just like the fact that I keep calling him Pee-Wee and Chad keeps correcting me and calling him Paul. And so
Paul Reubens.
My bad.
Right.
Right. So I
the
hear
guy
you.
with the donut mustache goatee and the hair down, the mullet and all that was part of that too.
The Buffy Paul.
I just thought it was weird that somebody was, I guess, finally given the exclusive, but he came across like he wanted the world to know Paul as much as they knew Pee-Wee, but then you get this disclaimer at the very beginning of like, oh yeah, he passed away, and you're like, really? Nobody really gets to celebrate this dude. Sure, he's on the other side. I believe in spirit, and I believe brother might be right next to us and all laughing his ass off, but the possibilities of other people getting to tell you they love you, it counts. Doesn't it count?
Well, you know me a little bit at this point, and I will tell you that has not been my experience. And I hate to say I'm an anomaly. I hope I'm an anomaly, but So I had a pancreas. So when I went through the Hodgkin's in 2006, I got a lot of that experience, from my coworkers, from my friends, people saying, "Oh, you're such an inspiration." No, blah, blah. I definitely got a lot of that. Not so much from family. Um, my spouse, I was a newlywed at the time. He just left town. That was weird. But that's I didn't even notice though. I didn't notice that till a couple, like literally 3 years ago. Someone finally said, I would have never let my wife go through that. I'm alone.
No,
And I thought,
hell no.
that is so, it did not dawn on me. Here it is 20 years later. It still hadn't occurred to me. I'm that stubborn and pushed through, but I was not that private about it. So when I got diagnosed with this pancreas tumor, so it's pancreatic cancer, but it's the neuroendocrine kind. So I always like to qualify that because it does set up a panic in people's minds. When that happened in 2017, I had a different experience. And at that point, that was where, if you've seen the video about can you say the wrong thing to a cancer patient, I got a lot of, now this was, at this point, this is just when I stopped telling people. So sorry again, if you know me and you're still just hearing this for the first time. The experience I got was horrendous. I got, you should exploit this, from a coworker who is no longer with us. So it doesn't matter. I'm not blowing her up. She doesn't care now. And I wouldn't do it. I did not want to disclose. I wanted to keep my privacy and just keep working and just doing my job. That's what I cared about. I didn't want people to look at me differently. So that's a big factor for some people, because when you hear that word, and I always would stop, and the friends I had, the few I did tell, they kind of backed away. That's an understandable. But and then even in this last bout with the triple negative breast cancer, you would think, oh my gosh, but no, my parents my parents are alive, and they're just they heard about it third hand.
Wow.
We heard about that. Piss off. Good luck.
Yeah.
It's been crazy.
And we all don't get good parents in this lifetime. And that's, for you to deal with that through husband and parents and coworkers,
I shut the fuck up.
Disheartening as shit.
Shut the fuck up. So what I do instead is I try to help other people. So that's kind of what this channel is about, as you know, because you know me, I'm a silly goose. I love my comedy. I love my pop culture. I love to work. Working is important to me. My cats are important. That's the thing that I do. I enjoy my life. But the people who don't want to be part of it, they just aren't. And I know it's hard for people to understand that. But the privacy factor, even the whole reason why this channel doesn't exist until now is because I didn't want to really disclose it, because my experience in disclosing these very life-threatening issues has not been good.
Right. Or worse, it's just been cricket, is what it sounds like. So yeah, I was wondering why I was catching shit in the gym just because I said, how dare he, not share every little bit of his life in this documentary, because I'm a doc fanatic. So But
you should know better than anyone. You've seen some of this. I mean, I know, we haven't made it all the way through my story, and it's I still have people, in my world that I've seen the whole journey. They're still here for it. And but yeah, the way people handle medical diagnoses like these, a lot of it is, I mean, now, and I do have to qualify that in my case, clearly there's pathology involved, in some of the personalities that I'm dealing with. So, you have to make exceptions for that. And, that's to be considered. But just as a general rule, my experience has not been hey, listen to this, so I tend to try to focus on solutions. I tend to try to focus on, and so when I give experience, I try to do it in a you'll notice it's a very clinical way. And I do my best to try to pull that heart out of my chest. It's in there. I swear I have one.
Well, yeah, because I would want the people that raised me or somebody I married and all to immediately wrap their arms around me and go, we're going to go through this together. We're going to beat this shit, whatever, for you to not see any of that. It explains walls, explains, here's one from the hubby, here's one from mom, here's one from dad. Oh, sis is putting on a fucking roof. Okay, well then now it's just feast or famine, and it's just one person against the world, and it's sad. It you shouldn't have had to go through that shit.
Well, I have been through it 3 times, and I'm still going through it now. And I have to say, each time it has actually gotten worse. I don't know how that's possible. So I have to then naturally take part of the blame, because I'm like, well,
you're the only one tying all these people together, right?
Yeah.
That would make sense, but that's bullshit,
Well,
right?
but that's why I don't say anything. I just don't tell. Even with the pancreas thing, I remember, saying like, oh, yep, I just have a cold. I really said that a number of times. Yep, allergies. The things I would come up with. Oh no, because
what do you want for dinner, honey?
Oh my
like
God.
trying to keep it light. I could only imagine.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't light too. I mean, the signs were quite visible at points, and that's a whole other thing. But yeah, I learned my lesson the hard way. And like I said, you don't always choose everything, but at this point I am choosing me, and I feel like I've been the most selfish in my life now. And I've been more honest with people about my situation. But that's why, you can be mad at Pee-wee, but he made his decision and I respect it. And Norm too, Norm MacDonald, I love you so much. We miss your brain. We miss your silliness.
I worded it wrong. I said I was mad at Pee-wee, and then that's when she quit bench pressing 350 pounds and just was like, I'm either gonna rip this guy a new one or I'm just gonna not talk to him.
But I mean, the person I could see must have been the most shocked was the filmmaker, and
right.
And because he was the one really left with the biggest challenge. If you ask me, it's like, how do I wrap this up and say this guy never told me the biggest cliffhanger ending was there and it was coming, and that's a person. I think that's how we tackle it, because that's in the storytelling, because there is something called medical narrative, and medical narratives are just that. It's different than creative therapy, which we talked about a little bit, like with the Mia Carlin thing, and we've talked about it in other ways, but medical narratives are something else. And so it's a way to kind of get the cringe out of some of your experiences. And so but yeah, so you can be mad at Pee-wee. I mean, it's a legitimate.
There were 2 things that I appreciated, at the very least, too. That he spoke about being gay, which is cool, bravo. The second part was they even talked about a guy that he truly was in love with, and he ended up deciding his career over love, and which is ridiculous and shit. Pee-wee, what in the hell were you thinking? But I get it. But the little cancer side note of like he passed away after 6 years battling the shit out of it. I was just like,
Both of those tell you though that there's something very core to him about his privacy and how fearful he was. And so maybe, they shared his parents. You could see how different he was from his parents in that documentary, even though they never left his life. So where those things come from, I don't know. And as far as Norm goes, I don't know. Norm was such a weirdo. Pee-wee's kind of a weirdo, in his own way. And they're clearly creative types, artistic types. But at the end of it, here's what I would say. It's everyone's choice. I tend to coach people based on their circumstance and based on their work situation, because you've got to protect your work situation, your insurance situation. There's lots of practical considerations. So as I've coached people over the years, I take all of these different factors into. I don't feel like Pee-wee had these challenges, but maybe he did. He might have been on the, the SAG-AFTRA, and I don't know. There could have been a consideration like that. And the reason he didn't want to say anything, but frankly, he got hammered pretty good at different points in his career, and the media and this and that, and maybe he wanted to know that he was going to tell his story his way, and everybody was just going to have to find out on their own terms. And like I said, I don't think that I would even be this out, had I not been forced to disclose, because I've just been sitting on this stuff for so long. This is what it is.
I think I'm willing to bet those 40 hours for him talking about who he is and who he believes he is about as authentic as it gets. And that's all we all really can hope to be, is to show people how our authenticity and shit. If you don't like me after that, then find another friend, find another character on TV to laugh and enjoy. But the authenticity was much appreciated. So
Yeah, he was definitely clearly clever, funny, different, and private. That's all you can really say about it. It's everyone's choice whether or not to disclose. There can be 1,000 reasons for it. I know what mine are. I can only guess what his were. And he really did give like the biggest cliffhanger in history. But I do feel like it was a little bit uncool to do it to the filmmaker, but then maybe not, because the filmmaker might have made a completely different movie. Having to think about that, just like people might treat you completely differently, knowing that. I mean, I always keep thinking people are going to be nicer to me. It seems like they get mean.
No,
I don't know. I don't either.
I don't get that. You're an impressive person. So
I'm pretty nice. Everybody agrees.
Yeah, you're nice to look at, and you're very smart. Sheesh. But
I'm okay with me, so that's what matters. And apparently, Pee-wee was okay with himself, but he wasn't okay with the public having he decided to keep certain parts of himself to himself. And so for that, I think that's where we have to land on it. Whether there were practical reasons, that's a personal decision.
I would even say that the documentary would have been different.
Yeah.
Like it probably, because it's real easy as a film person to be like, we know how it starts and it ends. Now let's make something happen in the middle. And he didn't give you the ending. So all you could talk about is Pee-wee when he was alive and vibrant and doing the damn thing. So.
And telling everybody happy birthday. So whoever's going to pick up that mantle, please hurry up and do it, because, he was so well known for that, what does that tell you? He was a thoughtful person. He was about everybody else, very externally focused. And it tells me a lot, because I know I tend to, be a little bit more about that. And it tends to help you manage some of these things when things don't feel as good with the way people handle your situation, whether you disclose it or not. So at this point, well, how do you feel about it? Are you mad at Pee-wee? Do you feel like, that filmmaker does he look stupid? That's what I was worried about. Is he like, I look so? No. You shouldn't feel that way. And no one should feel that way. When people decide not to tell, it's obviously a very complicated situation, and that's a long time to live with. And I'm sure at least one person knew, whoever it was. But anyway, but now we all know, and we can all appreciate him. And gosh, you can't go anywhere right now without seeing some Pee-wee stuff. And that part I'm happy about.
Yeah.
Sad he's gone.
It's good to see even 40 years later that people haven't forgotten the joy.
No, he's quite awesome. I love Pee-wee. So, and Paul, I love you, Paul. Sorry, let me call
Reubens.
That's what he wanted. So anyway, all right. Well, thanks for joining us, and tell us what you think.
Word.
I won't be mad at you for having any opinion, but that was kind of funny. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. And now it's time to go out there and get some good medicine and give some good medicine. And you don't have to tell anybody about it or tell everybody about it.
Smell you later.